Harold Brown Jr., and I was born in Smith County, here in Tyler, 63 years ago past. I lived in Tyler all my life, and the only time that I was really away from Tyler any time is the time that I spent in service. And I was in service in the Army over 6 years, and 3 years of that I spent in the Pacific, in Japan, on occupation duty Japan, in Tokyo, Japan, well, outskirts of Tokyo, Japan, a little place called Shinagawa. And after that, I came back. When I came back to the States, I spent about a year in service after that, and then I was discharged, and that's when I came home. And my intention was, and I did, go back to college, and intending on getting my degree, but I was out of service, I guess, about 5 months or so when they told me about this exam that they were giving to hire black policemen here in Tyler.
Tell us a little bit about your high school days.
Well, I spent all my elementary and high school days here in Tyler. In fact, all of them was at Emmett Scott. I started to grade school at Emmett Scott, which was down on Border Street, and I finished there. I never went to another school. I started in the primary or the primer, as they called it then, and I went from there right on through, at that time, 11 grades. You didn't have 12 grades. You started in the primary or the primer, and you went through 11 grades. And during the time, all that time was spent right here in Tyler, and not too much I can say, just as I was in and out of high school trying to play football and basketball and run track and all of just various sports. I tried to play them all. Mostly I had to work because see, I had cows to be up, hogs to slop, had to work in the field. So up until my senior year, senior year, most of my time was spent working because it was a big family of us, and I had to work, and I was the second oldest. In fact, I was the oldest boy at home. So all outside work, like cutting wood, slopping the hogs, and milking the cows, fell on me. So I cut down on a lot of my extracurricular activities until I became a senior in high school. But it was a good life, and I enjoyed it.
When you were in your teens and 20s, what did you do for entertainment? And
Well,
where you used to go?
Yeah, well, we had the Palace Theater that we'd go to. We'd go to movies mostly on Saturdays. We'd go to the midnight show Saturday night. And we had Green Top Cafe, where it was a teenagers hangout then, which was at Palace and Harmony. And also we go down on Mara Street with Nighthawks had a place down there where we teenagers would hang out during the week and on weekend. And that was just about, going to football games and things, about most of the thing we do, because we didn't have not too many cars around during that time. Very few of us had cars. Like my daddy got one, I think, when I was a senior in high school. But mostly either walk or ride a bicycle or something where maybe you got ready to go somewhere. And it wasn't, you didn't have the roads and things, that you got now, fixed like they are now. Because most of the streets around here was dirt, and a few of them was oil, but they were all rough. But all the kids, mostly when we got ready to go somewhere, we walked. And I guess we was in better shape because we did walk. And we had a lot of fun. But we didn't have a place to go and the things to do like the kids have now. But it wasn't that many of us. See, there's more kids now. And the town wasn't that large. See, Tyler was small, and at that time coming up, I knew just about everybody in Tyler. You know, black. You know, whether he was in North Tyler, Butler College, White City, East Tyler. We all knew each other because we all went to Scotch High School. I was going to school.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the job that you've had and anything that you can remember about those.
Well, when I was coming up as a youngster, I guess 12 or 13-year-old, I remember my first job was doodling roses, working in the rose field. And doodling roses, what we call doodling roses, you're cleaning out around the roses, you know, where the butter and can get to them and butter them and then tie them. And I would clean out around and put the board down, fold them over where the butter could get to it. And that was really the first job that I remember having. And I think I was making 10 cents an hour then. And I was working, most of that work was in the summer, and it usually was from sun up to sundown. But at the end of the week, if I had made $3 or $4, that was a lot of money. But Mom would get the biggest portion of it. I'd get about 50, 60 cents in change, so I'd have it in my pocket. But most of it would have to go to my family, because I was doing the Depression too, and things were pretty tough at that time. My father worked at the railroad, for the Cotton Belt Railroad, but most of the time, during that time, he was laid off. He maybe worked for a week or two out of the month. But it wasn't too bad. And then as I got older and began to grow some and working in school, I started working at the Southern Ice Company. And this was just at the beginning of the war, World War I, or just before World War I. They didn't have those refrigerated cars like they have now on the railroad. And they would, those cars would come in with fruit and vegetables in them. We'd have to ice them down. And that was, I guess that was probably the first real job that I had where I worked, pretty sturdy. And this was in the summertime after school. And I guess that's one of the things that helped develop me, you know, because I remember as a kid being real skinny and slim, but by the time that I was 15 or 16-year-old, I began to kind of spread out a little bit by working in the ice house. And that was my first real job until I was called up for service in 43. And in 43, I missed the draft first in 43 because I had a broken ankle playing ball in high school. And I missed the draft in 43, but I went in service later, and that's where I ended up overseas. And I think that was really my first longest job, over 6 years of being in service. But other than that, around Tyler, it wasn't, we didn't have as much to do as the children do today, but we still, with the work we had to do around home and all that, we still find time to enjoy ourselves. But not like the kids do today, because they don't have much to do today. They like cutting wood, milking cows, slopping hogs, and all of that. Yes. So it's a big difference. But it was good life, I guess, because I think everybody had to work during those times, and nobody had too much. And all the kids had jobs to do around home, some more than others.
And give us something about your career as a policeman in Tyler.
Like I said, when I came out of service, I was out of service about 5 or 6 months when I heard, back home and heard that they was giving a test, you know, because there's no hire 2 black officers here. So I decided to take the test because my last 5 years or so in service I'd spent in the military police. And as I come home, I said, well, this would be a good chance, not thinking that I was going to pass the test or anything, but I figured it would. But you know, by being away so long and then so many younger fellows here that was in college and was taking the test, I said, well, I don't have a chance too much, but I went out and taking the test and kind of finally make second highest grade. So I went, I think it was about 6 of us that passed the test. And they chose myself and Willie Johnson. And we became the first 2 black officers back in East Texas. And that was in October '54. And I worked there until I retired about 3.5 years ago.
You have any anything outstanding that happened while you were a police officer? How did white people accept you and Mr. Johnson as policeman when y'all first got on?
Oh, well, when we first went to work, we were hired to work in the black neighborhood. And in fact, we didn't arrest white people. In fact, if they told us that we saw any white out doing anything, unless they were murdering or killing somebody, called white officers out. And even if it was a wreck, if it wasn't a wreck between 2 blacks, it was black and white, we don't white officers would come. But we didn't have to wait too long because most of them stayed out in the black area at that time anyway. So they wasn't ever too far away. But to tell you the truth, when we first went on, we didn't have too much to do. I guess you would say we were more of just a symbol or something, you know, because I guess when they hired us, it was just for saying, well, we're going to hire 2 black officers. And the black community said they wanted it. And so they hired us and they told us, well, that's where you'll be. And so for a few years, that's all we done. We just be in the black community. And sometimes we're getting called, like I said, most of your cars at that time stayed in the black community. And the black community got quite a bit of protection back in those days, because sometimes they would holler location cars. When I say holler, I mean call on the radio and say location cars, and it was 8 units working at night. All eight of them would be somewhere in some black area. Instead, when they give a location, say 4 or 5 of them would be here in North Tower, and the other 3 would probably be out in Butler College or White City area. I think that's one of the reasons they went and started putting them in section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when did things begin to change, maybe? Or the
Well, just before.
Responsibility
Well, when you start having your civil rights movement, I'll say. And in fact, just a year or so before they started integrating the schools around here, which is, I guess, was 69 or 70. I guess about 2 years before that, they started, I think they sent Willie Johnson off to the academy. See, we had never been to the academy to be certified as officers. If I sent Willie, and I think the next year I went. And, you know, and then when we come back, then they begin to integrate. In fact, to tell you the truth, when I came back and they started integrating the schools and things, I had about 13 or 14 years on. Been on the force about 13 or 14 years. And they put an officer with me, a white officer, that had been on about 5 or 6 years. yet he put him with me to tell me what to do. And I had more experience, even my army experience was more experience than he had, because he hadn't been to the academy at the time, but yet he was telling me what to do. Which, you know, I didn't think too much about it, because I had it pretty easy. And he asked me a while ago, how did the people accept? Well, they just accepted us as somebody that's on the force, that's there. Because, I mean, one time I went over, I was sent by detectives, myself and my partner, I don't know whether it was Alvin Allison or Houston, so it was over Berkeley School. That was before the integrated. And the janitor over there, I wanted to pick him up and bring him to the station, because it was something, we wasn't arresting him, but I think he was a witness into something. And when we stopped at the school, well, they called the principal, and we went in, also the principal sent and got him, and the people in the area, the residents in the area, just flooded the station call, wanted to know what we were doing over in that area. So you see how we was accepted. We was accepted as long as we stayed in the black area.
How did the black community accept y'all? How did they?
Well, it was.
Respect you?
Yeah, majority did, but it's hard for somebody to respect you when they know that if another man came out there of a different color, that you couldn't arrest him. That's what it is. So it's pretty hard. But we got respect from them. But that's one of the things, a lot of times, that you found one that was around those joints, you know, those cafes and things, your regular drunks and things like that. They throw that in your face a lot of times. I don't see why you're picking on me because you gave me arrest Mr. So-and-so. So yeah, it was throwing up to you guys. And that was one of the things that you had to take and still try to do a good job. But I'll say one thing though, that we was an asset, I think, to the community. Because a lot of times, just by being there, we stopped a whole lot of things that would have happened. Not only trouble in the community, but being around there when other officers was there. But being there sometimes, they wouldn't do things that they would have done if we wasn't there. So I found out in the long run that we were an asset, just like being down in jail sometimes. We'd be taking somebody to jail. I would be them carry somebody down to jail. And white officers would come in with some black or something, and they bruised up. And when they see us down there, the blacks would start saying, this so-and-so has done something to me. Well, you can see them get mad and want to do something else, but we are there and they don't bother. And I walked over and pushed him back myself, and they this officer's prison and tell them to be quiet. And they'll be leaving and all of that. So, you know, what I'm saying is that by being there a lot of times, we really helped.
You prevented a
lot of things. Prevented a lot of things that probably would have happened if somebody got hurt. Because, you know, at that time, a lot of times they would see the officers, sometimes you didn't call them mister. You get your head almost knocked off. Or you walk in and don't take your cap off. They'd knock it off. Really. And I'm not telling you what I've heard. I'm telling you what I've seen. See, and things like that. So that's the reason I'm saying that it helped. It helped by, like I said, just by being there sometime. Yeah. But the improvement came really during the integration. I'll say in the late 60s, and early 70s.
Do you have any awards or merits that you achieved while you were in the Colorado Police?
Not really. I say awards, but I have got letters of commendation, you know, and things like that. But I haven't got no type of award of being a hero in this, you know, and saving somebody's life here, you know, and delivering babies and things like that. I've 30 years and 4 months, I never was lucky enough to bring life into the world by delivering a baby. Now, I've led them to the hospital and they badly made it. You know, it's siren on. I'm hoping all the time that we can make it. But I never had to deliver one. And I've been around where people have been hurt, you know, shot, cut, or something like that. But you know, it's always an ambulance or something show up, you know. So, like I said, most of mine was commendation or thank you letters because I've done made a lot of talks at your elementary schools and high schools and things during my career. And I would get letters of thank you and recommendation from that. But that's about the highest award. But the highlight of my career, I think, is when I was able to be close to President Ford when he visited Tyler. He was at Tyler Junior College. And I had an opportunity to be as close to him as to you because I was in the line, you know, at security as he was going in the door of the gym at TJC. And that was one of the biggest thrills. But I always liked working with children, you know. I enjoyed going to the nursery schools, elementary schools, and junior high schools, talking to kids. And for a long time, that was one of my jobs until they got what we call the community relations division. And then that's where, you know, later years, just before I retired, I stopped that. Every once in a while somebody would ask for me and I'd go and talk. But overall, in fact, I had to start working harder, I guess, when they integrated. I guess I should say, from the late 60s and 70s up until I retired, that's when I really went to work. Because I began to work in all parts of town, and looked like they were starting demanding more of me. And I tell them a lot of times, look, I'm just like a recruit now, you just want me to stop. But I had been on 14 or 15 years. But my last few years was the most interesting part because I began to work all phases of police, you know, began to do all phases of police work. And that way it was more interesting because before then like I said, I wasn't doing nothing much, which is over here in North Tower out in Butler College, over in the East End, and very little for us to do, and a lot of times we get calls, go on calls, and we couldn't handle the calls. So that was before they started integrating us into the force. So in fact, we were just wasting manpower mostly. Because a lot of times we'd have classes, and I remember any number of times they'd have, and never forget this time in particular, a captain was teaching the class about grenades. And he was talking, and this was a grenade that you put on a rifle and shoot through a window, and it hits in the wall and explodes. It was a gas grenade. And he was talking about shoot, and he was made a statement that to shoot this grenade into a crowd. Well, see, I didn't say anything while he was teaching the class, but when we had a break, and I went over and told him that a mistake he was making, because I had all that in service, handling those grenades and things when I was in the military, in the military police. He went back to class and corrected himself, but he never told anybody who corrected him. And that's any number of times that I've gone to the sergeants and captains and things, called themselves teaching classes from some old manual, and they didn't know what they were talking about. even in traffic control. I was talking about directing traffic. A lot of times I've corrected, but they go back and say, well, oh yeah, made a mistake on this, or we do it like this or that. But well, they never say who told them, or how they found out that they were wrong. But up until integration, see, they never wanted me to teach a class. In fact, like I said, hadn't even been to the academy. And there was quite a few fellows that come through, stayed on 3 or 4 years or something less than that they had sent off to different schools and academies. And they stay there a year or two, and then they go on to some other department or something, some other town or something. But
what do you feel like was your most, was the worst moment, or worst thing that ever happened to you while you were a policeman? You said about the thing that you remember the most that was pleasant. What was the most unpleasant thing that happened that you can remember?
well, I know it's quite a few unpleasant things that happen. But by being raised in this town and all, it's because the word nigger, you hear that all the time, even in the department during those periods. And I remember, about 2 years after I was on, I don't know, I just got disgusted and I said, hey, I'm gonna leave. But I got to thinking about my family, because I just got tired of, see, like I said, we wasn't doing anything but being in the colored boy town. And I said, well, I even went down and took the test to be a postman, as they were behind black, we don't have black mail carriers at the time, and I didn't work, and they didn't have any black mail carriers. And I said, well, maybe I'd like mail carriers. And I flunked the test, but the fellow told me to come back the next time they was having tests, and I never went back. Because I figured, I said, well, now if I go to the post office, I'm gonna be breaking in there just like I got broke in here. So I don't want to start there. So I said, well, I'll just wait, maybe I can find me something else. And I ended up staying there over 30 years. But I guess when I went to took the exam to be a mail carrier, that was probably about my lowest period. And I'd been there about 2 years, I'll say. Well, that was about my lowest period. I don't, you know what I mean? Just bad things happened, and that was, nothing really bad happened, but you had periods that you were let down sometimes, because when you have your chief tell you that you can take the exam, make sergeant, but whether you pass or not, he's not gonna make it. He's not gonna make it sergeant because colored officers go to work in colored town, and what can you do? What make you sergeant? So they need you taking the test. And I remember when they did ask me to take the test, Chief Odom was chief at the time, and I had an extra job, a part-time job. I was Texas College as security, but I knew why he asked me to take, because he told me all I had to do was pass it and make the sergeant. But see, I knew that federal money. See, that's another get federal money for different things, so they had to make sure. And then at that time, I was making about pretty close to $300 a month after Texas College security. And if I made sergeant, they were gonna pay me $50 a month more than I was making. And then they were gonna put me on at night. So I figured that didn't make sense, and I told him, I said, no, I'd rather not take it. But, because I knew what it was, and I told him that they were gonna end up putting me on at night. He said, yeah, because if they made me sergeant, what they were gonna do was put me in the detective division. And I was gonna be called out all the time tonight. And I didn't want that. because I'd worked nights long enough, man. I'd worked nights for about 14 years, and I finally got on days, and I wasn't particular about nights anymore. And then I was gonna lose money because I was about to quit the security job out there.
Okay, tell me of the progress, if any, of the civil rights for blacks in Tyler. Tell me if you really feel like blacks are better off today than they were 30 or 40 years ago.
Oh yeah, I really feel like the conditions are better. Like not only conditions as far as civil rights are concerned, but living conditions are a lot better. Because and then too, your job opportunities are not like it should be, but see, like I said, when I went to work with policemen, Willie Johnson and I was the first two blacks in it, and they didn't have no mail carriers, any black mail carriers. They didn't even have any blacks working for TP&L on the line and things. They didn't even have black Southwestern Bill working on the line and things like you see them driving around. You go in the banks, you didn't see any blacks unless they was porters. You didn't see any blacks sitting behind no cashiers or nothing like that. And in fact, you didn't hardly go to the bank because you didn't have any money. And make sure wasn't gonna loan you any. And then you go to these stores, you had to wait until everybody else was waited on before you could get waited on. And then they may not wait on you then. But now, so you got your black salespersons in your places like J.C. Penney's and Montgomery Ward. That's something you didn't see. Didn't see that at all. And in fact, they didn't even want you to try on shoes and hats. You know, I'm laughing, you know, but it was a petty thing that they just didn't want you fooling around trying on. If you put on anything, they wanted you to buy it. In fact, you almost had to buy it. And they had stocking caps and things. If you went in and put on a hat or something, you put on your head to try on a hat or something. And black women could go down there and try on dresses and nothing, you know. Look at it, if they wanted a dress, they had to buy it and then go home and try it on. But see, it's a big change, you know, and I'm just glad I lived to see it. It's just, my father was a railroad man. He worked for years as a machinist helper. He couldn't become a machinist. And he done all the work just about, but they called him a machinist helper, working on those steam engines. And as a kid, I always wanted to be an engineer. But by the time they started hiring, I said, that's something else you see, black engineers and black brakemen and things on your railroad. But by the time they started hiring black engineers and black brakemen, I didn't pass the age. I was too old. See, that just happened in the last 20 years or so. See. And I was too old for that. But I left the police department quick. But been in the age level where I could have gone and taken a test or something to be an engineer on the railroad. But those are some of the changes that I've seen, in fact, and they all for the better. And I know that because I remember the time it was really tough, man. You're talking about apartheid in South Africa. You could repeat the same thing right here in Tyler, Texas. People talk about Mississippi and Alabama. Tyler, Texas. Don't ever forget Tyler, Texas. It was tough. It was tough.
What was the single biggest change in your life, and why?
I mean, things. The biggest change in my life when I got married. That was the biggest change because I settled down on one thing because before then I'd never stayed in one place too long. Even though I'd come back to town, I was always going somewhere. And I began to take on, I took on responsibility. That's one of the reasons I was able to stay at the police department so long, because I got married and was married and had family, and I figured it was just time to settle. That really settled me down. The main thing about it, it settled me down. So that was the biggest change in my life was when I married and settled down and became a family man.
You belong to any clubs, fraternities, anything like that, or
No,
or your church?
I'm a Mason, and I belong in Beacon. I'm a trustee in the church, which is the Greater St. Mary Baptist Church, and Tyler here, and Reverend M.P. Massey, pastor. But no, I don't belong to any other fraternities, anything no more. Just being a Mason. I used to belong to some social clubs and things, but later years I got away from it. I guess the older you get, the less the less you want to socialize.
How long have you been a member of St. Mary's Church?
Oh, ever since I can remember. 60 years at least. Yeah, 60 years at least. I went in there when I was, in fact, I think when I was baptized in a little pool over here by the railroad track, right off Lincoln, which is King now. Where we used to swim in, and they would baptize, and that's where I was baptized under the leadership of Reverend Williams, Charlie Williams. So I guess I must have been about 3 or 4 years old at the time. So I must have been in St. Mary all my life. I remember St. Mary.
In the history of the black race, what do you want the general public to know from you, and why?
Well, I'd like for them to know the accomplishments of the black race, how they helped America move forward, how they fought in the war. In fact, that every war that the black man, that America had been in, the black man had fought it, but it never got any recognition. Even World War II and all, but see, way back, black men have fought, even during the war between the states, blacks fought, not only with the Union Army, but with the Confederacy, they fought. But he never got any recognition, just like during World War I and World War II. They fought, no recognition. So the main thing that I would want be known is the accomplishment of the black and how they helped improve and develop and sell America. That's the main thing. Just black history, period. Let black history be known like everything else. See, because I have some photographs here. When we went on the police force, CLIR Time never came out to take our picture. This picture we have in the newspaper was a Tyler leader. And during that time, there was only 3 people came down to see us. Well, the first night we was on, 3 blacks, and that was H.M. Morgan, who had the Barber Beauty colleges here, and another gentleman, Manziel Russell, was there, and then Humphrey, the picture taking Humphrey. He's the one who taking these pictures. He was there. Those are the only 3 blacks there. No other news media, nothing. And that was the first time that, but I don't think during that time, the Tyler Time that he put blacks' picture in the paper unless they committed some kind of crime or something. They didn't put no pictures in the paper for that. Nothing like that. I don't guess that was newsworthy at the time. But those are some of the things that I'd like, you know, just the accomplishments of the black race, you know, here in Tyler and elsewhere. And putting together, like you're doing now, black history, so that the young black can know the accomplishments of the black people. That's the main thing. Not the only thing about you hear now is about your latest and most of them are athletes, you know. like how Jesse Owens, Joe Lewis, you know. But you never hear about the doctor that discovered blood plasma and all of those others. See, you never hear. They may write about it in your history book, but they don't say whether he's black or white. They let it be known that this was a black man that accomplished that. Oh, it's just black history period. I'd like for it to be known, and the accomplishment of black people period. Let the black children know that, and I think that would be an inspiration to them.
Who was the single most influence in your life? The person or
My father, I'd have to say my father was. Because I come from a big family. And my father worked, and then after he got sick and disabled, he depended on me a lot, you know, to do things. Even when we bought a car, you know, at night we'd go places, he'd depend on me to drive. And I would say my father had biggest influence on my life, because I remember a lot of things that he had told me even as a young boy and a young man. It stuck with me today, some of the things he told me. And my father died when I was a young man. I guess I was about 23 years old when my father died. And like I said, he had the biggest influence on my life, even though he had to get on my back sometimes with the leather strap. And that was an influence too. But his teaching, you know, and then if I'd leave my father, I'd say school teachers, you know, school, especially in high school, people like Mr. R.S. Austin, T.V. Glover. Those are people that had a big influence on my life. Because coming up as a teenager and all, those were people, the men that I really come in contact with, you know, up until after, out of high school. And I used to tell them, a lot of times, I tell Mr. Austin and Mr. Glover, after I got out of high school and going in service and come back, I tell them what a big influence they had on my life, but they didn't know it at that time. because during some of that time, I said if I ever got grown, I was going to duck behind a tree or something and throw a brick at them. But what they were putting on me at the time, I really needed. Yeah. And they laughed at me because I know that's the only thing that controlled me. But I would say to those three people, and especially my father, was a big influence on my life.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us or leave with us before we close this off?
No, not really. I guess I talked so now. I guess we should have gotten some water where I would have gotten kind of dry. But I can't think anything that I've seen the city since the time that I went on the force up until now. I've seen the city more than triple in size. Because when we went on the force, I think the population of the town was probably about 20-something thousand. And now I think it's pretty close to 100,000. So, and you got parts of town now since I've been retired, but I've never been here to build up, you know. So, it's been a big change, and I think most of the change has been for the better. I think I'll be willing to say that after living here all my life. I think most of the change, even though it's a whole lot of improvement, need to be done. See, just like we was talking about a while ago, hiring is all right, police department and all, but see, you still have, what about promotions and things? That's something we don't have. So those are some of the things that we still need to be striving for and trying to get better race relations and all that, you know, in the community. Because I think it's still kind of that old stigma or something, you know, between the community and the police, you know. Still not really trusted, you know. And I think that's one of the things where you probably where more black officers and farmers and everything would help the community more. Not only just by being seen, but by contact. And seeing it's hard for a person to work in a community here and then to go across town to live. See, it's pretty hard for you to understand what's going on in the community. See, you just can't ride in a car around the community and know and get the feelings and all, unless it's hostile feelings or something like that. But you got to live in the community, and that's the reason since I've been retired, I've had no problem and no fear of going out on the streets now after 30 years, over 30 years on Force It. Because I've done my best to treat everybody right. And you find people on the street that will tell you that. Even from the drunk on up. That Brown never arrested nobody unless they need. In fact, most of the time I try to give them breaks, unless they had really done something, you know, that was a felony or something like that. I try to give them a break. But, and you know why? Because I lived out here in this community and other communities, you know, black communities. But when a person don't live in, when a person is working here in the North Tyler area, and then when you get off of work, you go to deep South Tyler, you really have no feelings for this area. But you get out in deep South Tyler, now you got feelings for that area. And you're gonna try to look out for your neighbors. That's just human nature. And you do what the whole city as a whole is a neighborhood with certain areas, you know. You get that's what I'm trying to say is, and if you're not in that area and you're not living in that area, you just don't get the feeling. And I guess that's why I could relate better, and being black too, you know, could relate better.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and the opportunity to come and talk with you.
Okay, enjoyed it, yeah. And anytime that I can be of any help, you know, and getting things for the city like that.
Nice. Let us know that you are consenting.
Yeah, that I'm giving consent that this can be used in any way to help. I'm giving my consent that it can be used to help in whatever way it can be. Thank you.